United States could save $13 billion if mothers would exclusively breastfeed their babies for the first 6 months of their baby's life. I was only 19 years old when I had my first baby. I was very young, and I had a lot of growing up to do in a short amount of time, 9 months to be exact. I also had a lot of decisions to make. One of those decisions was, how am I going to feed this baby? Am I going to formula feed or am I going to breastfeed? Since I was so young, initially I thought, I'm definitely going to formula feed. I am not breastfeeding. That's gross, it's not natural, and I'm not going to do it. I was wrong though. I had a friend that was pregnant at the same time. We had long talks about the benefits of breastfeeding and the pros and cons of formula feeding. She convinced me to give breastfeeding a try. So when my daughter was born, I thought, why not? The nurses wanted me to try anyway. The emotional bond that developed immediately was so much more than I had ever expected. The fact that I was this baby's sole source of nourishment was truly a miracle to me. And guys, you're not excluded from this discussion. As a father, you have just as much right to voice your opinion about how that baby is nourished and cared for. In 2003, I had my second daughter, who I also breastfed for 6 months. In 2005, I had my third daughter. She was born with a heart defect. She was on a ventilator and she was on enteral nutrition, so she couldn't breastfeed. But I wanted to keep my supply up for when she came home so we could continue the breastfeeding. I pumped 3 times a day to keep that supply up, and I also had to pump to relieve the pain from engorgement. That's right, girls. It's not always rainbows and butterflies. Breastfeeding takes commitment, persistence, and patience. Shell Marlette said, people need to understand that deciding between breastfeeding and formula is not deciding between Coke and Pepsi. It's choosing between a live, pure substance and a dead substance made with the cheapest oils available. There are several concerns with formula feeding. One of those concerns is the protein that is in formulas are hard for babies to digest. This can cause gastrointestinal problems like constipation, diarrhea, projectile vomiting can also happen, and also acid reflux. Formula is expensive, and when you're bringing a new mouth into the household, a new expense is hard to adjust to, and that can lead to other problems as well. It's inconvenient. Washing bottles, boiling nipples, carrying enough formula with you when you go somewhere, making a bottle while you're trying to do something else. It's all unnecessary inconveniences. There are also environmental concerns. The waste from these formula cans and disposable bottles are also unnecessary and can be alleviated by breastfeeding. The benefits of breastfeeding. Breast milk can protect against infections and reduce risk for later diseases like diabetes, asthma, and obesity. It also protects against infection and disease. The proteins in breast milk are also easy to digest, and that prevents gastrointestinal problems. The calcium and iron contained in breast milk is easily absorbed by babies rather than the vitamins that are contained in formula, which are not as easily absorbed. And here's a fun fact, and I love telling people this. Did you know that when a mother is with her baby in public, or even if she's by herself, and someone sneezes or coughs, that her body immediately starts to produce an antibody to protect her baby from those infections? I love telling people that. The benefits to a mother. It's convenient. Breast milk is always ready, and it's always at the right temperature, and it's always right there. The emotional bond is also a benefit. Like I said earlier, it can't be put into words. Whether you're formula feeding or breastfeeding, the emotional bond between a mother and baby are always close. But it's different when you're breastfeeding. Like I said, I can't explain it. Breastfeeding also reduces the risk of women developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer, which is a big plus. Milk banking. There are milk banks around the country that take in donated milk that has been tested extensively from mothers. This milk is tested. The main reason for the milk banking is to provide preterm infants a little extra boost to their immune system and to get their bodies on the right track. But not anyone can get milk from these milk banks. It has to be prescribed from a doctor. In 2005, after my third daughter was born, she passed away 4 months later. I was able to donate over 1,800 ounces to the Mother's Milk Bank at Austin. Since then, another milk bank has opened up closer to home in Jackson, Mississippi. To learn more about milk banks, you can visit milkbank.org. There's financial benefits to breastfeeding also. It's free. And since there's no waste, then there are no environmental issues. The future benefits to breastfeeding. Like I said earlier, $13 billion can be saved if a mother would just breastfeed her baby for the first 6 months of their life. Imagine how much could be saved if she went on to 12 months or 18 months or 2 years. The healthcare costs would decrease for the children and for the future adults who were breastfed as children. So girls, do some research on your own. Guys, talk to your wives, talk to your girlfriends, and decide what the best way to feed your baby is. I make milk. What's your superpower?